Aaron Marcum holds a Master of Applied Positive Psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, where he studied under Dr. Martin Seligman, father of positive psychology. For 20 years, Aaron has scaled businesses and received top industry awards recognizing his leadership, vision, and service. He's been a sought-after national speaker since 2006 and enjoys empowering entrepreneurs to make positive changes in their personal and professional lives. His latest book is Entre Thrive, The Entrepreneur's 8 Laws to Accelerate Financial Freedom While Creating the Good Life. And before we start this episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Deep Wealth, and the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program. Here's Jane, a graduate, who says, and I quote, "The Deep Wealth Mastery Program prevented me from making what would have been one of the biggest mistakes of my career. I almost signed on the dotted line with an unsolicited offer that I now realize would have shortchanged my hard work and my future had I accepted that offer. Deep Wealth Mastery has tilted the playing field to my advantage." Or how about Lynn? Wow, he gets right to the point, and I quote, "Deep Wealth Mastery is one of the best investments ever made because you'll get an ROI of 100 times that. Anyone who doesn't go through this will lose millions." And as you're listening to these testimonials, are you wondering if you have the time? Are you even thinking that you've got this covered? You have the advisors or people in your network? Well, I got to tell you, these myths, they're often behind the 90% failure rate for liquidity events. Think about it. You have one chance to get it right for your financial freedom. You really want to make it count. And when it comes to time, let's hear what William has to say. We just got in this testimonial. William says, and I quote, "I didn't have the time for Deep Wealth Mastery, but I made the time and I'm glad I did. What I learned goes far beyond any other executive program or coach I've experienced." So what do you think? As I hear that, that's exactly what gets me out of bed every day. That's my mission. That's the team's mission here at Deep Wealth, to literally change the social fabric of society, one business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. And my Deep Wealth Nation, what I want you to know, the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it isn't theory. It's from the trenches. It's the only one based on a 9-figure deal. And that deal, that was my deal. You know my story. I said no to a 7-figure offer. I created a system that later on, myself and my business partners, we said yes to a different buyer, a different offer, a 9-figure deal. That's what we now call the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, or the Scale for Ultimate Sales system. It's built by business owners for business owners. So if you're interested in growing your profits, for preparing for a future liquidity event, and that may be 2 years away, it could be 22 years away, whatever the time may be, you want to do this now, and you want to optimize your post-exit life. Deep Wealth Mastery is for you. To get started, email success@deepwealth.com. Again, that's success, SUCCESS, at deepwealth.com. You'll receive all the information about the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, or better yet, why not hop on a complimentary strategy call? We'll go through exactly where your business is today and what's standing between you and your financial independence and your dreams. So that's where you want to be. You want to be with other successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders just like you. They're looking to grow their businesses, create market disruptions, and unlock their financial freedom to get what they deserve. And whether you've been in business for 3 years, 40 years, you're a startup, you're in manufacturing, you're in high tech, low tech, whatever the case may be, come on in and network with other business owners. It's a safe space. It's a confidential space with business owners, with businesses just like you, because they all want to lock in their financial freedom and enjoy both success and fulfillment. So again, the 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it has your name on it. All you need to do is take the next step. Please send an email to success@deepwealth.com. Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. Well, Deep Wealth Nation, you heard it in the official introduction. We have another entrepreneur in the house, but not just any entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, a best-selling author, overall smart individual. I'm going to put a plug in it right there. Aaron, welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. An absolute pleasure to have you with us. And I'm curious because there's always a story behind the story. So Aaron, what's your story? What got you from where you were to where you are today?
Well, such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And my story, I'd like to say it's unique, and I think it is. There's certain, we all have unique stories, and I think the stories are powerful. And so I've been an entrepreneur since 2002 is when I really launched my first business. It was a home care agency, and didn't have any background in the home care space. But as I was moving forward in starting that business, at the time I have 6 kids. So that's obviously a part of my story. I have 3 boys, 3 girls. And at the time, I was 3 years into my business. because of the timing and I was just grinding it out, we were having some success. But I was burning out. I was coming home, I would play with my kids, and then I would go back to work till 2 or 3 in the morning. And it was just this grind. And so I had to figure some things out even back then. And over the years, become fascinated with the world of positive psychology and why do some people thrive and why do some people don't. And I came into that, well, about 2017, I really identified with that field. But in 2015, so I sold my home care agency, started another business. I've sold it and exited a few companies. And that company was one of my greatest success stories. It was, think of JD Powers for home care. We had created an entire benchmarking platform for an entire industry. And so pretty exciting opportunity. But I hadn't learned my lesson. So 2015, I was burning out again, obsessively passionate about what I was doing, which causes burnout when you become too obsessive about it. And I was not taking care of myself. I was 25 pounds overweight. I wasn't, again, not doing what I should be doing, and decided to make some changes. I had been living what I call, and I write about this in the book, the lie of the either or. I felt like either I had to thrive personally or I could thrive professionally, but I couldn't do both at the same time. So I decided, well, if I just focus on my professional side in building this business, then my personal flourishing will catch up. And that's a lie. That usually never happens that way. 2016, decided to take the time, invest in myself. And if you look at the growth of the company in 2016, it's like this hockey stick growth. We had valued, I remember 2015, we got a valuation of the company because I was starting to burn out. I'm like, how much can we sell this company for? And I think it came in for I realized for some this might be a lot, but it was like $1 million. It was less than $1 million. And we were so disappointed. Like, you always think your company is going to be far more valuable than that. Well, come into 2016, making those changes. And my team will tell you is when Aaron took the time, I got into biking. 2016, I finished a 200-mile bike race, the longest one in America, from Logan, Utah to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Just did all those things. And they'll tell you that's when we really grew as a company. Aaron started letting go, and our valuation just skyrocketed after that. And that's really the point of the book, is that you can create the good life for yourself while still creating financial freedom. Like, you can have both. You don't have to live the lie of the either or. Yeah. And I exited that company in 2020. I've had a couple companies since. I'm involved in some businesses right now, mostly in the healthcare, home care space. 2022, I actually went back and got my master's degree in positive psychology from UPenn, which for me personally was transformational as a father, as a husband, as an employer, as an entrepreneur. And that's when I felt called to write the book. I really, truly felt called that this book needed to get in the hands of entrepreneurs. It's called Entre Thrive. I wrote it after I graduated from that program at the age of 50. I'm graduating from that, and really transformational. I studied under Martin Seligman, who's the father of positive psychology. I don't know how familiar, I'm sure some of your audience is familiar with him. Wrote the book Flourish, wonderful man, and was able to rub shoulders with some amazing people. And so I now leaning into helping other entrepreneurs with their well-being, specifically in home care. We have a wonderful program called the Breakaway Accelerator for home care founders and their COOs, where it's kind of a cohort executive education style program to help them thrive personally and professionally. So
Aaron, quite the story.
That's the goal.
Yeah, no, I love that. And first and foremost, congratulations on 6 children. That's the biggest accomplishment and achievement.
Yeah, that's
not easy growing
wife.
up, I'm sure, but it's a gift that keeps on giving as they get out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's
independent.
Right.
So huge congratulations.
27 years married.
That's another huge congratulations to you. Yeah, you're hitting it out of the park in all the right areas. So, Aaron, let me ask you, because as you're going through your journey, I was reflecting on my own journey, and I'll put myself under the microscope. After my liquidity event, it wasn't a single, it wasn't a double, it wasn't even a home run, if I do say so myself, at the risk of self-proclamation, it was a grand slam. But despite that, like yourself, I went right back at it like I had something to prove, and I thought I had the Midas touch, and I was just burnt out and miserable when it should have been the complete opposite. So from one entrepreneur to another. And it's just the two of us listening in, no one else, just the two of us
Yeah.
talking here. What is it about us entrepreneurs that we can be so smart and, if I can say, so stupid at the same time, of just completely missing it and really dropping the ball? What's going on with that? And now, with your psychology background, what's going on here? What do you think?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. There's two different types of passion. There's harmonious passion and there's obsessive passion. This is a positive psychology, both of them terms we use quite often. Entrepreneurs tend to be more obsessively passionate about what they're doing because there's also levels of grit. There's 5 levels of grit, and I write about this in my book. It starts with curiosity, then interest. So interest, we're starting to do the research about our idea, what we want to do as an entrepreneur. Then there's the practice part, which a lot of younger entrepreneurs tend to skip that part. They think they just need to be passionate and not even practice it first. I wasn't passionate about home care out of the gate. I had to practice
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth is passion. And that's where you can start becoming obsessive with what you're doing. And the fifth, which is the highest level of grit, is a calling. Like you can really, truly feel called, but people don't realize that a called entrepreneur can still burn out because they are obsessive about what they're doing or the impact that they want to make. I love entrepreneurs. Like they're mostly overall, they're givers and they want to give back. They want to make a difference. And that can also swing to the side of being unhappy. Like they've got to prove that what their idea is going to work. And I have been stuck in that, like you just mentioned, with the financial freedom, living what people would from the outside would say, Aaron's living his best life. And internally, I'm like, I feel like crap.
Yeah.
It's not going the way I want. That's what happens. And so since going through that program, I've learned a few things that have allowed me to just say, what? We're all human. Case in point, just yesterday, I had 100 registrants for this masterclass I was putting on. Super excited about it. Tested all the technology the day before. All the codes worked. Launched the class yesterday. 10 minutes before, no attendees. Got to the time we're supposed to start. No attendees. Well, all the codes weren't working. We started getting all these emails. And 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, frankly, I would have panicked too, and it would have stressed me out. It would have just thrown me for days, probably. And it took me about 2 hours to process it and think about all the value I could create now because of what happened for these people who had blocked that time out. It was a 4-hour masterclass that we couldn't do. And I think resilience is really at the center of that. That, yes, I feel called to provide this, but harmonious passion is all about the resilience, all these kind of character strengths you can pull in to say, you know what, at the end of the day, they're all forgave me, that, I can create a win-win for everybody and we can move on. And I don't know if that answers your question, but that to me is the difference. And the difference, I feel like it's not perfect. There's some days the whole day I feel like this is not where I wanted to be or what I wanted to be doing. But I think overall, that resilience just kicks in so quickly these days, which I'm super grateful for.
That's amazing. And by the way, for our listeners, in the show notes, it doesn't get any easier. It's a point and click. Please go get the book, Entre Thrive, The Entrepreneur's 8 Laws to Accelerate Financial Freedom. But here's the kicker: while creating the good life, because there's so
Yeah.
many stories of people chasing the financial freedom and they have a miserable life. Forget the good life. It's miserable. And so, Aaron, let me ask you this. And you would be perfectly in your right to say, Jeffrey, you've asked such a general question because everyone's journey is incredibly unique and different. It's hard to answer. But that disclaimer out of the way, I'm going to ask it anyways. With what you're doing from your own experience, with what you're now doing in the accelerator, to the entrepreneurs that you're working with or that you've worked with, generally speaking, as entrepreneurs, as I mentioned earlier, we can be so smart in so many ways, but in other ways where it really counts, we just miss it. We drop the ball. What's going on with that? Any thoughts, any thesis on that?
Yes. Taking my own, we mentioned Colby before this call, right? And then I'm what's called in the Kolbe, and some of your listeners are probably familiar with the Kolbe assessment. I'm a quick start. I'm part of a group called Strategic Coach. Jeffrey, I don't know if you're familiar with Dan Sullivan's group. Yeah. And so when I get in a room and we all have our Kolbe scores, 95% of those in that room are high quick starts. Very few of them aren't. And I think generally speaking, we are like that. And so we can act spontaneously without maybe owning our data or owning the information. And like you said, act stupidly and do things that are not in our best interest, react. Like I think some entrepreneurs can be reactionary. Many can because they want it a certain way. And when it doesn't go that way, like yesterday, I wanted it a certain way, it didn't go the way I wanted it. And so we can be reactionary and act. And then that reactionary kind of forces us to, or does those unforced errors where we're making 2 or 3 mistakes following that reaction. And in the entrepreneurial world, nothing goes perfectly, usually. And so building that kind of resilience muscle and that just taking that step back, I think is really important. And then having a team who can pull you back. So I have a strategic assistant who's really good about, hey, Aaron, have you thought about this? I also have an integrator, a COO, who does the same thing that has a low quick start. Who says, let's think about this. In one of the venture I mentioned earlier, Home Care Pulse, the JD Powers for home care type company. I don't know how JD Powers feels about me using their name that way, but it's really we were a performance benchmarking company. They still are. They're an amazing company still. But I had a COO who was not afraid to call me out when I did act stupidly. And I think that's really important, is surround yourself with people that are not the yes people who think every idea you have is a good idea. I think entrepreneurs have to have 20 ideas to get to 2 really good ideas. And they have to have someone who can say that's a bad idea and here's why. And I had Eric was that person for me. And Trisha now is the person for me to do that. And so it's important that I don't know. I think that it's part of it's kind of, we're wired to do that, I guess, and as visionaries, to generate a bunch of ideas, and some are just not really good ideas.
For our listeners, if you're not familiar with the Kolbe model, you can go and look that up. But Aaron and I could almost be brothers because his Kolbe numbers is a 5393 and mine is a 6. So they're almost identical. And the 9 for Aaron and the 8 for me, that's the quick start. So it's almost a ready, aim, fire is how it should be, but we're ready, fire, aim. We'll just go out there and do it and then not follow through, not really implement and think about it afterwards. So it's probably a typical trait of a lot of entrepreneurs out there. And so, Aaron, with that said, I love what you did in the book because you took these 8 laws, which, regardless of where you are in your entrepreneurial journey or the industry that you're in, they really do apply. And I want to start with the first law for clarity. So the law of entrepreneurial clarity, or entre clarity, as you're calling it. So what would you want our listener to know about clarity? Because it's such an important area that I feel so many entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter if they're getting going or they're 3 decades into a career, oftentimes we just lose that clarity, or we maybe never had it in the first place. So what do you want them to know about that? What's going on there?
In the book, I lay out each chapter, each law with a crawl, walk, run. It comes from Martin Luther King. And he says, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving forward. One of my favorite quotes. And the crawl part of Entre Clarity, or entrepreneurial clarity, is you first have to decide what you want out of your life. And I call them your guiding truths. I've had my guiding truths for 15 years. And so, case in point, several years ago, I was putting together the first ever home care industry benchmarking study. And I'd started my company a year prior, and the trade association partnered with me. I don't think at the time they realized I was a one-man show with my company, but was entrepreneurs. That's at the time I was like, yeah, I'll do this. And they knew I had some data experience. Anyway, I was in over my head a little bit, and I was putting in crazy amount of hours, and the deadline was coming up. I literally had grabbed a sleeping bag in the office, was sleeping under my desk to get some shut eye, and again, burning the candle on both ends, and broke down in tears, wondering what was I doing, ready to send an email off to the president of the trade association to say, I'm done. I can't do this. And I remember looking, I had my guiding truths. Back then I called them my declarations, and I recoined them because it resonated more with me as my guiding truths. But I had them on a canvas on my wall even back then. I've added one guiding truth since then. This was 2010 when I had this experience, and call it a God experience, whatever you want to call it, just this overwhelming feeling as I looked at my guiding truths and looked at my family receives my time. My mind is at peace. There's one, I have 9 of them. My life is filled with abundance. And I realized I had lost my way from those guiding truths. I'd had them up until that point. I believe I've had those since 2006, so almost 20 years. But also at that time, I realized what I wanted, and I tied that study to it was going to be a wonderful branding opportunity for my company. And then in order for me to live a life of abundance, I had to focus and get this done. Got up, got it done. And it turned out that study's the longest standing study in the industry. It was an amazing tool for us. And so anyway, that's, I think, guiding truths, getting clear on what you want, I think is really important. Clarity or entrepreneurial clarity is what I call the cornerstone of all those laws, is you first have to get clear, and then also clear on what we call your breakaways. That's a cycling term, but a breakaway is when you're breaking away from the pack. And who are the people you want around you? Like we mentioned earlier, those people who can tell you when to break away, if it's a good idea to do this, how to move forward, support you in that breakaway. I call them also your drafting partners. But we have a breakaway guide that we give our clients, but getting clear on what you want in your guiding truths, and then what are your breakaways to break away from the pack? Quit doing what everyone else is doing. Similar kind of the blue ocean concept. Free zone is a strategic coach term, but it's what is it that you're going to really stand out? What is it that you want to do to break away from the pack? So,
yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense of having that clarity really from the outset. Again, I think our challenges, since we're so really similar on the Colby side of that ready, fire, aim, it's okay, before I do that, well, what's the big picture here? And I love how you position my words now for the clarity, the entre clarity. It's really like your North Star. So from the smallest of decisions to the biggest of decisions, you have that clarity, you have that North Star to guide you. And I'm jumping all over the place here. I promise you there is a method to the madness. What I wanted to ask you, so if I go to, it's going to be I want to say the third law here for grit, entre grit. So you're talking about the law of entre grit. And I had the question for you because I know in the book you go through this, and you also mentioned earlier you have the 5 levels: curiosity, interest, practice, passion, calling. And when I look back, my most successful times have been when it was actually a calling. And I was doing the preaching and I was out there and preaching to the world about that. And there's other times where I failed miserably because it wasn't a calling. It was, if I can be open, greed, ego, all the wrong reasons. And it took me a while to figure that out before I said, okay, enough's enough. I've always been challenged though, because I do have that grit, and you have all the social programming. And I'm probably going to botch it. I think it was Vince Lombardi who said something along the lines of winners never quit and quitters always lose, or something along those lines. There is a time where we should be quitting and where winners do quit, doing the right thing at the right time. And so I was wondering, what's your take on that? When, despite the grit, despite the calling, that we know, you know what, it's just either not the time or it's just not going to happen. I'm better off stopping this and going in a different direction.
Yeah. I think that if you combine this a little bit, it's such a great question. But if you combine this with the hedgehog concept with good to great, to say, okay, I might feel called, but financially, is it economically viable? Can I be the best in the world at it? And am I passionate about it? And that's the call. Obviously, you're passionate about it. So it's the other two that you really need to answer, I believe. But I think most people, though, when they feel called and they answer those three questions,
Mm-hmm.
then your staying power is so much stronger, and your ability to make revenue and to grow that company is exponential,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're creating the good life alongside it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're in that practice phase and you're in there for too long and you never really are fully passionate about that, then I think that's when you have to decide, is this really for me? Do I need to quit? The other thing, if you're in the passion phase and you're realizing that your passion is more internally focused, like you mentioned, the financial, because
Mm-hmm.
we can be passionate about money, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can say, okay, I'm passionate about this because my life is going to be amazing. And that's where passion is. And nothing against passion.
Mm-hmm.
Passion is typically more about us and what we want. And I think that's important. That's about the entre clarity. I think that's actually critical in order to get to your calling. But when you feel called, then it becomes about the people around you,
Sure.
your customers, your employees, your team members, about the impact when you
Mm-hmm.
feel called. And that's the difference between passion and calling, is that it's outward facing. Calling's outward facing, and the staying power of someone who's called.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a fairly big gap between passion and calling because of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And while you're talking about that, we've mentioned the term the good life a number of times. And to
Yeah.
me, the good life really it's going to transcend the grit and the clarity. And I'm wondering because you're really in a privileged position. It's not just yourself. You have the privilege of working with other entrepreneurs in the Accelerator. And from what you're doing with your talks and your coaching and your support, broadly speaking, what would you say the good life is for you, or at least in your community?
Yeah. For me, the first and foremost is the ability to spend time like I would like to spend time, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. Dan Sullivan, my coach at Strategic Coach, and I work directly with Dan with a group of the Free Zone, and he calls it the four freedoms: freedom of time, money, relationships, and purpose. And time for me, before I stepped down as CEO, so I stepped down as CEO at Home Care Pulse at 2018, 2 years after we started this accelerating journey, and still was the owner of that company for a
Mm-hmm.
few years after that. But before I did, I took a 7 week sabbatical, left my laptop at the office, never checked in, not once. And the company was fine, it grew. And to me, the good life is first and foremost about my ability to spend time the way I would like to spend time. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's time I want to spend in the business.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's having creative space. If my calendar's full for a day, that's not the good life for me. I
Mm-hmm.
need space in my calendar to have that flexibility. But that might be different for somebody else. So you have to decide what that good life is. It's an Aristotle term.
Mm-hmm.
He used that term 2000 years plus ago and he called it the complete life.
Mm-hmm.
It's eudaimonia is another term that Aristotle used. And so the virtuous life, again, another Aristotle term. And so deciding what that good life looks like for you, but it usually includes one of those four freedoms that Dan often talks about,
Mm-hmm.
which are a lot of us want freedom with, I mean, money, we have to be honest with ourselves too, is that money does provide levels of freedom. It allows me to travel with my family. I just got back from Mexico with my family. It allows me to have that flexibility and purpose, like doing the things that I love to do. I love to bike. I love to train for these rides. I have to have time to do that. So it's all in relationships. Number one contributor to our well being is our relationships. And there's really not anything that close to the impact our relationships have on our well-being. And
That's
so,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
And as you're talking through that, it sounds as though for you, anyways, for the good life, it's really having different seasons in your life. And by seasons, it doesn't have to be months and months. It could be one season today and another season tomorrow, but you have that freedom,
Yeah.
you have that flexibility. Hey, yesterday was packed. Today, you know what? I'm just going to take off. I'm not even going to go to the office. I'm not even going to look at emails or take calls because I want to. I don't have to justify this to anybody. That's part of my good life code, or that's part of my seasons of what it is today. And tomorrow I
Yeah.
may go back to the office and figure out how I'm going to move the dial on the business and be really involved and working on the business and the strategies. How am I doing with that? Would that be more or less on base in terms of the good life for you?
You're right on. I mean, that's exactly right. And again, the good life for another person, they might be the happiest when they're in their business and they're really working through problems. You just have to decide how it makes you feel. And if it's something that creates energy, and also decide out those things that pull that energy
Mm.
and get really keen on what those things are and what relationships are pulling our energy and what relationships are creating more energy in our lives. So I don't know. For me, time,
Yeah.
flexibility with time is a huge component of my good life, and living those 8 laws, having the habits and doing the little things in my life that make such a big difference. Influence with my team in a positive way. I mentioned what happened yesterday is
Mhm.
that part of my good life is then mentoring all of them to get through it, because a lot of them
Mhm.
were, some of them are beating themselves up over it. And I feel called as a leader to, rather than react, to actually show them how to respond in these kinds of situations. So
Mhm.
again, the good life it's never ending.
Mhm.
We don't arrive at the good life. That's I think an important note as well.
And I suppose it would be, I'm just thinking out loud here, Aaron, as you're talking through this for the good life, that the journey, the right kind of journey with the right mindset is every part of the good life as anything else. It's interesting. A short while back, we had a special roundtable here, and it was all about the post exit life, something that you can relate to. I can relate to. If you haven't lived it, though, it's hard to relate to. And there's the other entrepreneurs that were there, and they did really well. 9-figure exits, some of them multiple exits, and
Yeah.
the zeros in the bank were just tremendous. But they also the same thing, and I've experienced this. I don't know if you've experienced this. And they said, Jeffrey, money is great, and money can help remove some of the friction from life, but it's not going to buy the happiness. I woke up the
Mm-mm.
same day after my deal closed with all these zeros in the bank, and I wasn't happy. I had the same fears and the same challenges, the same unresolved issues that were bringing me down when I didn't have that money. I
Same
did.
relationships, maybe
Same
even
relation. Yeah.
that were now worse than they were before.
Well, it gets worse and more complicated because now you have that
Yeah.
lineup out the door of with their hands stretched out, family, friends, advisors. Hey, can you help me? And it just goes on and
Mm-hmm.
on. And for me, that's one of the areas I really failed very badly in the post exit
Yeah.
life. I didn't find the happily ever after. It took quite some time. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. Some of the biggest mistakes I made were post exit,
Oh,
not
interesting. Yeah.
during the journey. And that's why now in our Deep Wealth Mastery Program, our 90-day program, we take the post exit life. It's actually the very first thing that we do because at Deep Wealth, it's not a thesis, our factum is that even if your exit is 22 years away or 2 years away, you can plan your post exit life because it takes time to create that momentum, to find out those rituals. You can start dabbling in little activities when you have all this white space. You can do that today so that when it does happen, it's not the guesswork and you actually have some kind
Yeah.
of a rhythm or a framework to rely on.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Jeffrey. That's powerful because it is an issue. I mean, so I had a big exit in February of 2020. So what happened then? COVID.
Yeah, the pandemic.
And so everything shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about feeling lost for a
Mm-hmm.
while there. I was like, okay, now what am I doing? And it was a quick exit too. It was just a few months, and I was out from the day I exited. Thankfully, I had built a team that picked up, and they didn't need me after that. And so when you exit like that, you don't feel needed as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a real downer. And you're not in that leadership seat. You're not calling the shots. And a lot of entrepreneurs that I've worked with struggle immensely with that.
Mm-hmm.
Depression, all kinds of challenges can come in once you exit because money doesn't solve it. And
Yeah.
it further complicates it if you don't have that plan. So what you're doing is amazing.
And for the listeners out there, and I know some of them are mocking us, Aaron, they're saying, Aaron, Jeffrey, come on, get off of
Yeah.
it. Money doesn't solve the problems. Let me tell you about my problems, how money would solve it. And for those listeners out there, it really doesn't. I've been on both sides. And
Yeah.
believe me, yes, money is better. No two ways about that. But the happiness, it sounds so corny, but it's true. The happiness has to come from within. Money cannot fill that emptiness from within. It's got to come from something other than the material side of things. And speaking of that, it's actually a good segue because for the fifth law, entrepreneurial faith, Aaron, for some people, even the mention of the word faith has them just
Mhm.
stop and take a step back and say, what are you talking about here? And they don't feel comfortable about that. And so I would love to know really the story behind the story about the
Yeah.
faith. And you put that in there. It's really one of the foundational laws that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what's going on with the faith? What do you want the default nation to know about this fifth law?
Yeah. Of all the laws, that was the one I struggled with the most to include. It was a battle between what I felt was right,
Mhm.
what some of the pressure, even people close to me, like, Aaron, are you sure you want to? Maybe you should replace that with trust because,
Mhm.
that's an important one. And then you can spin it that way. But when I really thought about it, and especially, and this is the interesting, and I talk about this in that law, is the evidence, the research of the power of a faith, whether that's, I'm not talking religion here. Okay. We got to
Mhm.
separate spirituality from religion. I am religious. I tell people that I'm a Christian. It's really the faith I'm talking about is faith in a higher power. And when you have faith or belief in a higher power,
Mhm.
it actually, research shows it does enhance your well being.
Mhm.
Ignore the research and felt like it was important. But the faith I also talk about, so there's three. When we go to the crawl, walk, run,
Mhm.
the crawl part is faith in ourselves. In positive
Yeah.
psychology, we call it self-efficacy. It's hard to put faith in a higher power when we don't even believe in ourselves and in our abilities.
Mhm.
And as entrepreneurs, that self-efficacy, that belief that we can figure things out is imperative. Like you can't even get past go if you don't believe that you can figure things out as an entrepreneur because you are constantly hit with things and challenges that require problem solving and require that ability or that confidence. It even goes beyond self-efficacy, goes beyond confidence. And so that faith to figure it out is really important. Then the second is faith in others.
Mhm.
I had a mentor. He's since passed. He had passed of cancer in 2022. One of my best friends, very successful entrepreneur. And he invested in one of my companies early on. And I remember when he handed me that check, he didn't know a whole lot about my business. And he's like, Aaron, I don't need to see a profit and loss statement every month. You
Mm.
can fill me in. But he goes, I'm giving you this because I believe in you
Mm.
and I have faith in you. I'm investing in you. And I'll tell you, guess what that did to me? That was
Absolutely.
huge.
Mm.
This guy believes in me. I look up to him. He's super successful. And that was a game changer for me. Dale was such an impact on my life. And so that's faith in others. And I've done that for others many
Mhm.
times in trying to build them up. And then the third is the faith in a higher power. That's the run is we can't do everything. And there are things that just go beyond our abilities. And so believing in miracles, believing in that there's a higher power out there to help us figure it out, whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever your faith is, that does add to your belief or your ability to be successful and live the good life.
Yeah. Firstly, my condolences on the passing of Dale. It sounds
Oh,
like just
thank
a
you.
wonderful mentor and friend that you had along the way and gave you that boost early on when it sounds like you could really have used that and it made all the difference. And
Yeah.
Aaron, full disclosure, I am a person of faith and I'm going to use the word
Yeah.
God for me. For
Yeah.
other
Please.
people, it might
I
be a
use the word
universe,
God
it
in the
might be
book.
something else. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can tell you when God has been on my side on the business, that's when things have worked out. And I will be the first one to attribute the dumb mistakes. That's all Jeffrey. The achievements, the wins. And I look back on things. There's no way I could have just done that. And it wasn't just luck or serendipity. there is a higher power. And I give the praise and all the glory to God
I
for
love it.
doing those things. And I may have just lost the two listeners for the podcast that that we
And
have
that's okay.
that were listening in on that when they're
We
hearing
need to
this.
be able to not be shy about sharing those things. And it's not like we're forcing faith on others, but to be authentic. And thank you for sharing that with me and letting me know that, because God is real for me and has been a key element. And I love how you put that, is that all your mistakes are you, right? And then all the things, the achievements, there was God behind that. And I believe 100% the same way, is that I didn't do any of these things, any of these great things myself. Even my positive psychology program, that was a God thing that came, that fell in my lap, and because of him. So
Mm-hmm. It
that's,
was
I'm right there with you.
my business partner, Steve Wells, who was with me from Embenet all the way through now with our other ventures. We were talking and we're having a Bible study and we were talking together. And we're just saying, look outside, look at a flower as it's spring, as we record this in some parts of the world. Look at the blossoming of a flower or the trees and tell me that there isn't some kind of a higher power, or somehow
Yeah.
miraculously windstorm swept through and all these different bacteria got together to do that. There's an order. And what's interesting is, we're going off topic here a little bit, but we'll go back on. Science now, quantum physics, are showing that what the faith side, what the faith world has been saying for eons, science is now really backing that up and saying one and the same thing. And it also goes to what we spoke about earlier, your mindset, our inner thoughts, whatever that is, and more importantly, our feelings. That's what manifests our outer world. And so there's a big role, and I'm glad you did include that in the book and to get that out there. And
Yeah.
so let me ask you this, because the other thing that was really interesting, and I couldn't agree more, you're talking about the connections. It's the fourth law. And I'm sure you learned about this in some of your peer groups. And I'm often reminded of Jim Rohn's quote: we are the average of the five people that we spend the most amount of time with. That could be
I
putting
love
some labels
that
on it,
quote.
positive
Yep.
or negative, but
Yep.
going back to getting some clarity and being able to create. And then for the sixth law, your habits and your vigor and your agency. I mean, to me, a lot of that will come from, well, who's our peer group? Who are we speaking to? Who are we really spending time with? And so for the Deep Wealth Nation, for the listeners out there, when it does come to connections, the fourth law, and I know I'm jumping all over here, and
No,
thank you for
yeah,
your
that's
patience
great.
with that. What would you tell them about the importance of the connections in the fourth law?
Yeah. It first starts with you, what you attract, and what you're going after. When I got in the world of cycling, it was amazing. These people are pushing themselves. Some of the friends I got in that I became good friends with, most of them, ironically, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's happenstance, are entrepreneurs who are really trying to make a difference in the world. One of my
Mm-hmm.
best friends has now become, who I bike with, is a great entrepreneur. And so yeah, I don't think that's at all a coincidence. And so I think you attract the people in your lives by the actions you're taking in your life. And so
Mm-hmm.
with some of these connections, I go over three different areas in that law. The first one is about congruency. It's something I don't think we talk enough about, is that who you are in private is also who you are in public. You're congruent with the two different ways you show up in the world. And so that congruency is important. When you're incongruent, how can you foster any kind of relationships when you're incongruent? The science supports that you can't. You can't foster deep relationships when you are not the same person in private and in public. So that congruency, I think, is really important to foster deeper relationships. And then presence is the second, is learning to really truly be present with the people that matter most, and those people who give you energy. I talk about this in the book, is that be very mindful of the people you're around. And sometimes family members can drain your energy. Now,
Yes.
here's the caveat to this, is that if you aren't present with people in your life, they might drain your energy because you're not present and that you're not actually giving them the time that they need, especially if it's a family member. And that when you do, and when you are present, then and you're truly sincere and concerned about them, and that it's genuine, they'll feel that, and that energy just cycles between the
Mm-hmm.
two of you. The third is the high quality connections because of that energy. And that's Jane Dutton, a famous organizational psychologist. She coined that term, I believe. But high quality connections is those daily connections that feed our soul, meaningful one-on-one connections, whether it's with your Uber driver or with other people. But again, whatever gives you energy in those connections, and be mindful again of those that no matter what you do or say or how present you are, they're going to bring negative energy into your life. And you may have to either eliminate those connections, or minimize them to where you're not around them as much. And that's hard. That's really hard for a lot of people to do. It's hard for me to do.
I suppose, though, if you go back to the first law, your law of clarity, and you've got that, and then you've got the, on the whole passion side, it's your calling. And when you put that first and you realize, you know what, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a early childhood friend, who knows what it is, but this person really gets in the way of my mindset, and they're just an energy vampire. And after I meet with them, it takes me 3 days just to detox and cleanse, and the business is suffering and these areas are suffering. That then it becomes clear, okay, I don't have to be a jerk about it, but I can slowly over time begin to withdraw, back off, and over time just not have that association. And I don't know about you, Aaron, I find, though, when we change our mindset towards that, it's almost as though we're operating at a different frequency, and the other party almost magically on their own just drops off. And it's unbelievable
Almost
when that happens.
100% of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
And family, I think, can be the exception in proximity, because of the proximity, if they're in your same household. And that's when having open and honest conversations, understanding what it is. But I tell people that first ask, is it I? Am I the one causing the friction here because I'm not present, or I'm not congruent, or what am I contributing to this? I had a unique situation with a family member a few years ago, and it was me. It was me. I was like, I would tell people, man, I'm around him, my energy's drained. It's because I wasn't present with him. And so it wasn't any of my kids, in case any of them are listening, or my wife. But anyway, it was me. Yeah. And when I changed that about myself, the relationship changed.
Yeah, it's terrific accountability on that, and you owned it. And hey, maybe it's me, as the old saying goes, when you point a finger, you have 4 pointing back at you. Yeah, something to think about. And let me ask you, before we go into wrap-up mode, we've been talking a lot about the different laws and what's going on in the Entre Thrive book. I love that, with the 8 laws. I know those are embedded into your whole Accelerator, and you're doing some wonderful things with that. So what would be the secret sauce with the Accelerator? So if I were to show up today and say, okay, Aaron, here I am, I want to be part of the Accelerator, maybe even the masterclass that you're doing, timing wise, how long does this take? And what would I be doing? What kind of results would I expect with the Accelerator system?
Yeah, thank you. So the Breakaway Accelerator is specifically right now for home care founders, CEOs, and COOs, although we have some big goals for it in 2025 to expand into other healthcare segments, and then even beyond that, because it's so agnostic in its approach. Although there are some customized parts of the program specific for home care providers. But it starts with a 3-day immersive where we bring 12 companies, their CEOs and their COOs together. We want that person who's going to implement some of the strategies and best practices. We bring them together for 3 days. And what it is all about, and I think this is the powerful part of the program to help them break away, is that we're not giving them these out of the box, one size fits all strategies in their sales, their marketing, all of that. What it is all about thinking tools and asking the right questions so that they can build those for themselves. And so we start in 5 different areas that we focus on. The first one is think. That's the clarity. That's the mindset. Like if they don't, like their business is not going to grow beyond their thinking. And so that's, I heard Ed Milet say that a few months ago. And I've been saying that for a while, is that your business will never grow beyond your thinking. And so we try to expand their thinking through all these really cool type of interventions that we've created. And then the second is keep. That's more company related. That's
Mm-hmm.
helping them build a positive culture, a keeping
Mm-hmm.
culture to keep their top talent. And then the third, once we can get those two first ones, those we call them breakaway mindsets
Mm-hmm.
in order, then the third breakaway mindset is accelerate.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can work on the strategies and help them create the strategies that work for their company. Accelerate. Fourth is transform. Now we're talking about transformation, transforming, creating again, blue ocean type concept, but creating that unique space for them to
Mm-hmm.
transform their business. And then the last is the abundance. That's the good life. That's helping them transform themselves personally and live the abundant life. That's the Breakaway Accelerator program. Again, right now, we're keeping it focused on a certain type of entrepreneur where I played for the last 22 years. But then we'll be expanding that.
Yeah, I love that. And you're really operating on the art side of business, the art side of life. This is not going to show up in a complicated formula in a spreadsheet. In my books, anyways, this is where the magic happens. This is where the success comes from that we don't hear about. You're not taught that in business school. You don't read that in most of the business books, but this is where
Yeah.
it's at. And I just love how you're
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. And it's an annual program. I don't know if I mentioned that. They start with a 3-day immersive. And then they go into this in the full 12-month accountability. All of that is part of the program. So
It sounds like you've
yeah,
taken really the best of everything of your journey and put it into this 12-month
yeah,
program to really
yeah.
make a difference.
Thank
And
you.
my next question before we go into wrap up mode, it's really not a fair question. I'll be the first to say that. It's almost like asking, hey, pick your favorite of your 6 children. Which one's your favorite? Let me
Yeah.
ask you this though. On the 8 laws, is there one that really stands out more for you than the others?
Oh, yeah. And I've had that question before, and
I'm
I
sure you
probably
have.
have not always been consistent with my answer. I call it the keystone law, not the cornerstone law, the keystone law, which is
Okay.
the eighth law, and that's agency. Martin Seligman talks about agency quite a bit, and he talks about the three pillars of agency: self-efficacy, which is belief in ourselves,
Mhm.
imagination, and optimism.
Mhm.
And in order to create great things in your company, I think the agency is important. You avoid blame, you avoid choosing to go into what we call thinking traps. I think agency is paramount for entrepreneur to continue their journey. You can get stuck in that journey and quit too early if you're always looking outward for blame and you're choosing to think a certain way and so forth. So agency, I would say, is pretty darn important. I think also the create law, the second one. I mean, obviously clarity, critical, really important. But as entrepreneurs, if we are not creating and having that space to create, because most of us are creators,
Mhm.
then we're not happy. We're typically not living the life we want. And so that's really important to, rather than being in your business all the time, creativity, using your creative flow is working on your business.
Well said. And as you're saying that, I'm just reflecting and I'm seeing really your secret sauce here, or your method to the madness of really how, yes, okay, agency, the 8th law is what you had selected, but they really all build one on top of the other. And so to have one, you really need the others, and it creates just a terrific safety net, if you will, to allow you to go out there and achieve.
It's like an arc. I see it as an arc, and agency is the keystone because everything kind of is wrapped underneath it or
Exactly.
around it. But yeah,
Exactly. Let me ask you this before we go into wrap up mode. Is there a question I haven't asked, or is there a topic we haven't covered, or even a message you'd like to get out to the community?
I think that the biggest message is that for me is as an entrepreneur, you impact so many people
Hmm.
typically, unless you're a solo entrepreneur. But even then, I'd argue you still impact a lot of people, your family, your customers. And so when you're not taking care of yourself and you're, again, living the lie of the either or, where you're just focused on your professional well being, your
Hmm.
financial side, your personal well-being will suffer. And
Hmm.
not only will it suffer for you, everyone around you will suffer and be
Hmm.
impacted by that. When you're not showing up with your best self, like I wasn't until 2016, then your business will plateau. It will struggle until you really decide to invest, at least most of the time. I realize there are exceptions out there, but for the most part, that's a lie. So
It's so interesting because As entrepreneurs, we hear so many things out there in social programming and everything else. What we don't hear enough of, it's our family, it's our close friends. They're as much a part of the journey as we are. And so if we can't get it right ourselves on the journey, that goes back to faith and some of the other things that we spoke about. And
Yeah.
we're showing up tired and burnt out and not giving the attention or the presence to our family members. Not a great situation, not a wonderful environment to be in. And really, it's all from our side. We can't point the finger at anybody else. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so that said, we're going to go into wrap up mode. It's a tradition here on the Deep Wealth podcast. I have really, it's a privilege and an honor to ask the same question to all of the guests. So let me set this up for you. It's a fun question, Aaron. When you think of the movie Back to the Future, you have that magical DeLorean car that will take you to any point in time. So, Aaron, imagine now it's tomorrow morning. And here's the fun part. You look outside your window. Not only is the DeLorean car there, but it's curbside. The door is open. So you hop on in. You're now going to go back to any point in time, Aaron, as a young child, a teenager, whatever point in time that would be. What are you telling your younger self in terms of life lessons or life wisdom? Or, hey, Aaron, do this, but don't do that. What would that sound like?
Yeah. Ooh, I love this question. There's so many things I would tell myself, but if I had to pinpoint one thing, I would say when it comes to the stress side of things, is I would try to give my younger self perspective on what's truly important, that you're going to build some great things, but keep this in perspective. And frankly, I would tell my younger self too, that spend more time with your kids and with your family. Again, when you're in that grind mode as a young father, the way I was, is I was so laser focused on grinding it out and proving to people. That was sadly, my biggest motivator was proving. And I would want, if I had to go back in time, I would go back in time to 2003, a year after I started my first business. And I would tell that young Aaron to say, hey, success will follow you, but you are missing the point. You're spending way too much time at work. You know, you don't like to have regrets, but, and I wouldn't call them regrets. I learned from those experiences, but certainly would have wanted to change that perspective for myself back then.
That's great advice. And I've been there with you and building the business and missing precious time with my eldest daughter, who was a newborn at the time. And I hear you on that. It's actually one of the common themes here when I ask that question. Very successful people have said the same thing. For all the success that I have, all the accolades, all the zeros in the bank, I can't go back and rebuild or be part of those family experiences that I missed. And some of those people aren't even here anymore. They've passed on, and I just missed that window. And they share that as one of the regrets, one of the only regrets that they have because of that. So a lot to think about, Deep Wealth Nation, as you head out from this podcast. And Aaron, before we wrap this up, if a listener has a question or they even want to become part of the masterclass or the accelerator, where would be the best place online to reach you?
So the accelerator can be found at breakawayaccelerator.com. So that's breakawayaccelerator.com. The book, we actually have a website for the book called Entre Thrive, ENTRETHRIVE.com. They can actually, if they click on resources, they can download our Entre Clarity guide, which actually has a whole tool on building out their guiding truths. So that's a powerful tool that they can tap into. So
terrific. And Deep Wealth Nation, this is all in the show notes. It's a point and click. It doesn't get any easier. Well, Aaron, congratulations. It's official. It's a wrap. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
So there you have it, Deep Wealth Nation. What did you think? So with all that said, and as we wrap it up, I have another question for you. Actually, it's more of a personal favor. Did you find this episode helpful? Have you found other episodes of the Deep Wealth Podcast empowering and a game changer for your journey? And if you said yes, and I really hope you did, I have a small but really meaningful way that you can actually help us out and keep these episodes coming to you. Are you ready for it? The dramatic pause. I'll just wait a moment. Drum roll, please. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast on your favorite podcast channel. When you subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast, you're saving yourself time. Every episode automatically comes to you. And I want you to know that we meticulously craft every one of our episodes to have impactful strategies, stories, expert insights that are designed to help you grow your profits, increase the value of your business, and yes, even optimize your post-exit life and your life right now, whatever you want that to look like. And every time you subscribe and a fellow entrepreneur subscribes, It's a testament to how together, yes, we are changing the social fabric of society. One business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. So don't let the momentum stop here. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast channel. You'll never miss an episode. You'll be the first to hear from the top industry leaders, the innovators, the disruptors that are really changing and shaping the business world. And maybe you're commuting, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're taking a well-deserved break that we spoke all about on this episode. The Deep Wealth Podcast, it's your reliable source for the next big idea that could literally revolutionize your business. So once again, please hit that subscribe button, stay connected, inspired, and ahead of the curve. And again, your next big breakthrough moment, it might just be one episode away. Maybe it was even this episode. So all that said, thank you so much for listening. And remember, your wealth isn't just about the money in the bank. It's about the depth of your journey and the impact that you're creating. So let's continue this journey together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much. God bless.